Welcome to Hope Academy. My name is Mr. O, and today I'm going to be covering over the concept called Type 1 and Type 2 errors. And so in front of you today is a worksheet that I just found online. It's just a sort of template that does help a lot for me, and I believe that this will help you too to sort of visualize and understand how Type 1, Type 2 errors work. And I'm also going to be providing a little bit of lesson to remember what Type 1, Type 2 errors is, what does the power value mean in the context of this, and how do we go about doing different type of problems to identify it. And I'll also provide a deeper understanding as to the implications behind Type 1 and Type 2 errors. And so when I am doing this type of questions right here, a lot of times we need to understand what type 1 error means and type 2 error means. And so I'm going to write that right on top here so that you could follow along. And so type 1 error, I do want to make it very clear for you so you know. Type 1 errors are usually defined as alpha. Okay, there's no particular reason why, but it's usually just called alpha. And it is the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis. Probability of rejecting null hypothesis. And hopefully this is not too small by writing, and I'm just making it very clear for you. And then type 2 error. It's usually what we define as beta, and it will look like this. So I'll also write down the terminologies alpha and beta, and usually it's defined as the probability of failing to reject a false null hypothesis. So make sure you understand that these are the terminologies for type 1, type 2. A lot of times they are used very commonly to sort of discuss, the understandings behind, type 1, type 2 errors and whatever not. But I do also want to put them into context here. So a lot of times when we talk about alpha and whatever not, type 1 errors, your probability is also going to equal to your alpha. So I do want to label them into these boxes here. So that means that when we make a correct decision, your probability is going to be 1 minus alpha. And this is just like terminology stuff that you just need to memorize and such. So when we make, for type 2 errors, for example, we're going to state that P equals to beta, and so that means usually they're the complementary, which is equals to 1 minus B. So they're complementary of each other, and so that's how it sort of goes about. Okay, and so that sort of explains the general idea behind powers, and usually most often than not, usually we set alpha to be 0.05. Usually it is the same alpha as when we do significance testings for Z tests or T tests or confidence intervals and whatever not. So just be aware that it is the same type of alpha, and that is usually the common value, that alpha will equal to 0.05. And it is assumed, if it's not mentioned, that it is going to be equal to 0.05. But that being stated, today I'm not just going to be talking about terminologies. I'm going to actually go into problems that are given to you right here. I'm going to follow this template right here. If you notice right here on the chart right here, this does talk about sort of how it works. So on the left side is the decision, as in what did those people decide, the people at the desk, or the testers, or the statisticians that are recommending to these companies. What do we think? So that is what the decision means. The hypothesis test, usually we're just going to put here is the null hypothesis right here and the alternative hypothesis. So like this, okay? And so usually that's what we usually label right there. But be aware that these decision values, and I'll explain more in depth when I'm doing these problems, will help you dictate whether it's type 1 and whatever not. And so I'm going to go ahead and actually do a problem so it makes more sense to you. So number 1, the question states this: the state of Georgia is considering spending $350 million on a computerized mathematics curriculum that is for grades 3 to 10. They pilot the program with 250 students in grade 5 and 6 who end of course test scores are compared to the state average score of 150. So the scenario is this. From reading the question, I noticed that the scenario is that they're considering spending a lot of money on a program, basically, and what they want to do is improve whether or not this course actually improves their score, or or there's no difference. And so when we're defining our null hypothesis and such, we have to make it clear that null hypothesis will usually be the situation that there's no change, there's no impact on whatever not. And so that means that basically the mean value or the score, state average score, will equal to 150. And our hope is that this program actually works. And so mean will be greater than 150. And so that concludes just sort of me identifying my null and whatever not. But now this is where the decision comes in. So there's either two possibilities that could occur, right? As I mentioned before, either the program they're talking about is effective, or the program is ineffective, because that's what we're making as a decision, right? As statisticians and whatever not, that we're recommending to the school board and such, we're trying to decide whether or not this program is actually effective or it fails. And so based on the template that we're following here, making sure that it is in the sequencer thing, if the program actually does not work and we state that the program is effective, this is what we call the type 1 error that is going on. Because that means that even though the program is not working, we are recommending this program, and that's going to be an issue. And I'm going to explain more in depth what that means, implications of that in a bit. So that's type 1 error. If the program does not really change the state average scores and we say the program is ineffective, that is the correct decision. That means that, there's no problems with this, right? That we made the right decision and the program does not work, okay? And so right here in this box, we're saying that the program is effective and we're saying that the scores have gone up from the state average. That means that the correct decision, again, we're all good. And it's very similar to the chart above. If you notice correct decision and such, just make sure that your sequencing for decisions are in the order. But to continue on. And so right here, we're stating that the program does work, but we claim that it is ineffective. This is what we call a type 2 error. Okay? And so this is the part. So type 1 error is basically us stating that the program the program actually does not work, but we claim that program is effective. So the issue was type 1. The big issue with type 1 is this then, right? So if you think about it more in a logical sense, if the program does not work and we claim that it is effective, what does that mean? We waste money, right? That's one possibility. And duly note that there are many other possibilities you could think of that I might not mention, but make sure you know that these are some possibilities that we could waste a lot of money, right? That we hope that this money is well spent, and yet that's not really the case. So that's one possibility. Another possible issue is the fact that, scores will not improve, right? Scores will not improve, and students get impacted. Students lose growth opportunity, right? Now that means that during those years that we claim that it's working and is not, that means that students we are hoping for us to help them improve their scores or help their mathematics skills and whatever not, are losing out on this opportunity and they're not meeting to the grade levels. So that's another big issue for type 1 issue. For type 2, and I don't have too much space, but I'm going to work with it. So type 2 error. When we talk about type 2 error, we're saying that it improves, but we state that the program is ineffective. And that means that we're missing out on a big opportunity if this is the case. Missing out on opportunity, right? That means that even though this program works, we're saying that it's not working and whatever not, which means that we missed out on a program that's going to help our students meet the expectations for mathematics. But that, not only that, if that is the case, that means that we're wasting more time. So what I mean by that is that because we claim that this program is not working, this means that the district has to spend more time just looking for more programs and trying to figure out whether or not this program works and such. And that means that we're missing out, we're spending more time and more resources just to try to get another program, while this program could have been the solution. And so be aware that depending on the question, you do have to sometimes on the AP Statistics examination determine whether or not type 1 or type 2 errors are really critical and concerning. And so for this scenario, it seems pretty balanced and whatever not. It just seems that type 1, in my opinion, this is more of an opinionated basis, but type 1 seems to be a bigger issue because that means that we are wasting millions of dollars, $350 million, if we make that wrong decision. And so just be aware of this, okay? And so this is how I go about doing type 1 and type 2 error. And I'm going to do one more question, just more briefly and more quickly, so you just get a better idea of how to do these type of questions, just to make sure that you are on track and not confused. And so I'm going to go ahead and do this type of question. And so for this question, if the question states this. So pharmaceutical researchers are testing a new drug for acne. Severity of acne is rated on a scale of 1 to 7, 7 being the worst. Side effects for the new drug may include vomiting, upset stomach, mild fever, and or hyperactivity. Their sample size is 80 with participants randomly selected to a control group n equals to 40 and treatment group n equals to 40. Alright, perfect. So H null. So the idea is that they're testing based around acne, whether or not medication works or not. Okay? And so the idea is that if I'm taking medication and like it's not working, right? That means acne doesn't change, or basically it stays the same. Acne stays same. Okay, that means that the medication is not working and whatever not. H null means acne gets better, right? That means we lost acne. And be aware that sometimes the questions are going to be in number format, word for null and whatever not. Sometimes it's going to be in words, because for this case, it makes it very hard for me to really create a standard for H null and HA based on the scale. But I could just state generalistically that it's just acne gets better or not, right? And so just to continue on, our decision is try to decide whether or not this medication is actually working. So our decision is whether drug is effective, right? Similarly to what we did above, saying that program is effective, but now it's drug is effective, and drug is ineffective, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and run through this. So being aware, the same formatting, this is going to be correct decision, and this is going to be correct decision, and this aligns to this thinking, because if acne gets better, that means drug is effective. If acne stays the same, then drug is ineffective. Okay, and this is my type 1 error, and this is going to be my type 2 error. Perfect. Okay, and now we're going to understand the implications. So when we do type 1, type 2, I've noticed, at least personally, that a lot of the questions that are especially driven towards understanding the significance of type 1 and type 2 error and their impact is usually on medical based things. The reason why is because medication, if you mess up on medication, it could potentially cause death. And so that's why type 1, type 2 is such an important thing to study, and that's why a lot of these pharmaceutical companies do really think about this when they're taking into consideration and really spend the money to invest. So I'm going to go ahead and write type 1, type 2 error right here and explain the breakdown to this thinking. So type 1 error, if the acne stays the same but the acne stays the same, but we claim that the drug is effective, okay? And so that means that what's basically happening, and duly note, they mentioned right here, side effects for a new drug may include vomiting. So that means that basically patient is going through pain, is going through potential side effects. I think that's a better way to phrase it. Through potential side effects for no gain. Okay, that's one big issue already, right? That this patient's taking this medication hoping that their acne drops and there's no improvement. This is also could mean that a lot of money is wasted on this medication that actually does not work, which means that it's wasted money, wasted resources, such as people putting advertisements and such in order to promote this medication that actually does not help with acne. Another possibility is just general liability, such as lawsuits that could potentially occur in the future, where the company could actually get sued for providing false advertisement and so on. But that being stated, now we're going to continue on to discuss around type 2 errors and what does that entail. So when we talk about type 2 errors, one of the possibilities that could occur is the lost opportunity of money. This company made the wrong decision then. This means that what happens is that this company who could have made millions of dollars out of this really legitimate medication that could help acne now lost the opportunity because they made the wrong claim, and now that means that means lost opportunity for money, and that means lost time developing other drugs, right? Other drugs. So that means that they're going to go ahead and get back to the scratch board, create another potential drug that might not be as effective for the acne help and whatever not. And so be aware that type 2 is more of an inconvenience factor and the company does lose out on a good amount of profit. But consideration between type 1 and type 1 has a larger impact in the society, in the people that is involved. And so very obviously for this specific question, type 1 is the worst error that could exist. And so just be aware that this is the sort of type of questions that are going to come up on the AP Statistics free response question. Be aware that they won't give you this 2x2 box. This is more of a tool for you to be able to organize your thoughts around type 1, type 2, and to be aware how to identify it and such. And so that concludes my explanation for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel or like our Facebook page so that we could continue to make content like this. Thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a wonderful day.